Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. My name is Juan, and I've been coming on and sharing with you a little bit more about some of the going ons during Holy Week so that, because I believe that it really invites us to a much more conscious journey, spiritual journey. And as we honor and celebrate Palm Sunday, Monday, Thursday, or Holy Thursday, and Easter, which are the three primary days and events that we honor and celebrate, there's so much that takes place in between. And I believe that all of it, if we really take it on, can direct us and guide us to a true resurrection, into the abundance, into the prosperity, into the wholeness that is God. And so I'm grateful that you've joined us. Now, I also want to just take a moment to wish everyone who celebrates Passover a happy Passover. It doesn't always fall on the same time as Easter because of some calendar stuff that goes on between the way in which the Jewish community and the Christian community schedule these activities or events and honor them and celebrate them. But this week it is on the same week. And so happy Passover to all those that celebrate it. And we're going to be looking a little bit about into Passover tomorrow, a little bit more. Now, what I wanted to share with you about the going-ons of Jesus and the apostles and those that were around him is, once again, Jesus was going into Jerusalem. He was going into the temple to teach. And then at nighttime, he was going back to Bethany or not staying in Jerusalem. And so, again, the reminder, the opportunity for us to realize it's part of the human condition that we move into that higher level of consciousness, that higher vibration, and we get sucked back into our normal routine, our normal life, and maybe even the normal drama that we are used to. And so how do we just continually go back into Jerusalem, into that higher vibration and higher awareness? Now that we've been doing this sort of for a couple of days, going back and forth, think about the ways in which in our own spiritual journey, right? Like as Jesus is going into Jerusalem with the apostles, each time he goes, the journey becomes a little bit more simple. The path becomes a little bit easier. And isn't that the way that it happens with us? The more that we go to center, the more that we go to that Christ in nature within us, to guide us and to inspire us and to fortify us, it gets easier to move into that space. The other thing that I recognize in this story is Jesus is going each day to the temple to teach. And Jesus, as an expression of that Christ consciousness, as a symbol for that Christ consciousness that is in each of us, metaphysically, Jesus is going to the temple, teaching, and I imagine that every time he shows up, there are less people that are sort of ignorant to his teachings because he's going to be touching more and more people, right, each time. And that's what happens with us, when we go to that Christ center for that guidance, to remember our wholeness, to remember our connection and our expression of the divine. It begins to heal thoughts of separation, thoughts of being limited, right? And so each time that we go into that Christhood within our own temple, each and every time there is a greater healing that is taking place, or we're sort of like peeling the onion and going deeper into healing. And the more we do that, the less ignorant we are about our own truth, our own connection with God and the divine, and the ways in which we are meant, really uniquely shaped to show up in the world. Now, yesterday I mentioned there was so much teaching that took place on Tuesday that we didn't get into all of the lessons. And so I wanted to just go back to one of them because for today, it really just says there's a couple of things that happen. But as far as teaching is concerned, they're not some specific stories that are attributed to the Wednesday. It just says that in Matthew, Mark, and Luke that he continued teaching, that Jesus continued teaching. So I want to go back to one of the teachings from yesterday, from the readings from yesterday. And it's in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 through 45. And it's the part of the Gospels where Jesus tells the apostles and all those that are there to listen about how in the final judgment, um, those that uh, fed Jesus, those that gave him food, that gave him water to drink, that welcomed him, that gave him clothing, that took care of him, that visited him, would be blessed. And uh, when he tells the story, the people that are to be blessed because they've done those things, they ask him, well, actually, we never saw you hungry or gave you food. We never saw you thirsty or gave you something to drink. When was it that we saw you as a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and we gave clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And that's when Jesus responds with, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. Conversely, those that aren't going to be blessed are the ones that Jesus says did not do those things for others. They answer, well, wait, you were never around. We didn't see you. So how can you blame us, right, for not doing those things for you? And he responds, truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And it's one of those teachings that really reminds us about how we are here to be each other's our brother's keeper, to be able to serve and be of service to each other. And that every time that we do that, we are really serving the Christ. And in unity, we believe that we each have that spark of divinity, that divine nature within us. We each embody Christ, our Christhood. And so we don't serve the personalities necessarily. We serve the individual identity, the individualized identity of the Christ every time that we serve others. And it's such a beautiful way of recognizing our oneness, of recognizing that which comes to us when we say yes to being of service to others. And I want to invite you to think about the times that we don't serve, for example, right? Like when we see somebody who um, may be hungry and we don't feed them, when we see somebody that's thirsty and we don't give them to drink. Basically, the times that I choose knowingly or unknowingly, to not extend myself in service. So I was thinking, well, what are the reasons why I may not be that Christ like in my sharing? And I thought, well, maybe I'm being stingy. Maybe I don't think that there's enough to go around. That if I give to somebody else, I'm taking away from me. And that is an expression of lack consciousness, that there isn't enough, or a feeling like we can't trust that God will provide to us. We can be judgy, maybe, right? Like, well, they don't deserve it, or what are they going to do with it? And again, when I do that, I'm in judgment. And when I'm in judgment, I am not fully conscious that what I am doing is honoring my own Christhood by serving the Christ in others. The other thing that I think sometimes happens is just that we're not fully aware of the needs of others, right? And that's just a reminder that for me, that our power, our ability to express more fully and embody our Christhood, um, that we have to be present, that we have to be aware of what is taking place. We have to be mindful. And the moments that we are present, aware, and mindful, we do receive blessings. And so, maybe we're just ignorant, to the needs of others. We're just not able to see them. And it's, again, just a reminder to step back and realize maybe I need to be a little bit more mindful. And mindfulness does bring about blessings. And so, conversely, when we're not in judgment, when we aren't being stingy, when we trust that as we give, we receive, that we shall be taken care of also, and that we're present, that's when we receive those blessings, right? That's when we truly live into the kingdom of God, because in those moments we trust that we are one with God, we trust that we are one with Source, we trust that wholeness and abundance are our divine birthright. And I don't think that there can be a greater blessing than fully acknowledging truth. Now, want to now continue a little bit into some other pieces. This is the day where they start plotting how to kill Jesus, and the high priest starts plotting together on how to arrest him, and have him killed. But they do say, let's not do it now in the middle of the feast, because a lot of people will be upset over it. And so they want to wait till after Passover. And that just gives you a little bit of insight into sort of, the steps or the process by which this all took place. But before Passover, which we'll talk about tomorrow, the first day of the unleavened bread, Jesus sends Peter and John into town and says, "Go and prepare the Passover meal for us that we may eat." And they asked him, "Where do you want us to make preparations for it?" "Listen," he said to them, "when you have entered the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him into the house he enters and say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asks you, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs already furnished. Make preparations for us there." So they went and found everything as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover meal. I kind of love this part, because we're going to get to go into a little bit of Bible metaphysics. And many of you know how much I'm a nerd for it. And I love being able to check in metaphysically about what some of these Bible stories are trying to tell me. And so one of the things that I would look at is, so Jesus, our Christ nature, sends Peter and John into prepare the meal. Well, Peter metaphysically represents faith, our faculty of faith, our ability, our power of faith. And John represents the power of love. And that just, I see the beauty of moving into life, into any situation, with faith and love. I can't think of any other powers that I would sort of want to have in my tool belt in order to create more of the life that I want to create. Love, first of all, is just that harmonizing power that, first of all, brings harmony to that which is around us, harmony of our mind and heart, harmony of what we say we want and what we're going to receive, what we think we want and what we're going to receive. And so love is a very powerful part of manifesting and of creating the space for our good. And in that space, how do we fill that space but to have faith and trust and be willing to see God in expression? And so you have faith and love leading the way, right? And preparing the way. And then they go and they have to look for a man who's carrying a jar of water. And to me, that is representative of water, is, that purity, cleansing. And in that jar, I can only imagine it was a clay jar, which is very earthy. And so um, faith and love uh, do their work by purifying itself, and by me purifying myself, I allow more of faith and love to show me the way. And then really, I love this part where he says that the person that's going to basically host them for Passover is going to show them to a large room upstairs. Many times in the Gospels, or actually in the Bible, they talk about going to the upper room, and metaphysically it represents going to that higher state of consciousness, being able to see things in that higher state of consciousness. And so when we combine the power of faith and the power of love, and we do the work of purifying our thoughts of lack and limitation, our thoughts of not being worthy, our thoughts of not being one with God and with each other, we are then able to go into the upper room, that higher consciousness. And that's where miracles will take place. As we know, and we'll talk more about tomorrow, it is the place where Jesus Christ, Jesus in his embodiment of his own Christhood, performs miracles during the Last Supper, and is able to really connect and share with the apostles in a way that is truly deep, and brings about a shift for him that week, for everybody around him, and truly for humanity. So I hope you enjoyed getting a little bit into some of this metaphysics and some of these stories. And I look forward to connecting with you tomorrow. Make sure that you check in with us. And remember, this is all leading us to a wonderful celebration of who we are, of the Christ presence risen within us, and our awareness being elevated to recognize our own Christhood and our own oneness with God and with each other on Easter. So this is all the work that we are doing to rise up and to come together and celebrate Easter in the next couple of days. So thank you again, and I really appreciate you being a part of it.